I built the pantry of our dreams. Well, for this small space anyway. It has 6 super deep drawers on soft closed drawer slides, and the drawers slide almost all the way out so you can easily access everything in the back, and you can see all your food so nothing gets buried in there and expires because you forgot about it. Now this new pantry replaced the very quirky builder grade pantry that came with it. To start, ever since we moved in about 6 years ago, it actually didn't even have a door, and it had some wire shelving that was only half as deep as the pantry. So it was really hard to organize, and we were constantly forgetting we had stuff in there, and it was just going bad. It was terrible. So my goal was to maximize the functionality of the space, and because the closet here was so deep and narrow, the best solution was to use really deep drawers that we can pull almost all the way out and access everything all the way in the back. Now, because of the irregular dimensions of the existing pantry, it's just made out of framed up drywall, and in the back corners, the drywall mud's kind of built up in that corner, so the back is actually more narrow than the front, and it's not super square. I knew I had to build a cabinet style pantry and then slide it into the existing pantry. So first things first, I need to demo the old wire shelving, and I'm going to pull this trim off, but I'm going to cut around it with a razor blade. That way it separates from the drywall and paint nicely, but actually I need to get rid of this food first. So, I like to use one of these sharp painter tools to go around all the drywall imperfections, kind of scrape away the big chunks and get it ready for mud. What does that guy have? Oh, wood glue. Wait a minute. Haven't I learned my lesson already? I should test fit everything before permanently attaching it together. Today I'm going to test fit the inner portion of the pantry, or the supporting walls and inner frame. I've learned my lesson before. Before I permanently attach this thing together, I'm going to make sure it fits in the space. Sliding these pieces in to make sure the inside dimensions fit. Okay, now it's time for the glue and screws. I attached the 4 cross members with wood glue and pocket screws to one side before setting the other side on top. I guess I should have flipped it over, done it the other way. It's smarter that way. That's smarter. Except for the gluing part. After the outside frame was done, I took several careful measurements, then began constructing the drawers. The drawers are held together with, you guessed it, pocket holes and wood glue. That's a big stack of drawers right there and right there. The drawer parts that I'm about to route a groove for the underlayment, or the bottom side of the drawers, and then hopefully start assembling soon. I drilled pocket holes into the drawer ends. 12 end pieces, 24 holes total. Now it's time to sand down the cabinet frame and all the drawer pieces. Sanding is one of the most tedious and time-consuming steps, but it makes a huge difference, and I would have regretted skipping this step. On the side of the pantry that has a door, I had to bump out the drawer slides so the drawers could clear the door. The door cannot move completely out of the way because there is a wall and window trim. The door intrudes into the pantry about 1/8 of an inch when it's open, so it was necessary to shim the drawer slides with 3/8 inch plywood strips. Here, I'm marking where the drawer slides and drawer slide shims are going to mount. I attached the shims on the door side with glue and screws. YouTube is not my full-time job, so I have to squeeze in time for these projects wherever I can. As a result, the projects end up taking several days, weeks, or even months before they're complete. But the same probably goes for many DIYers out there. Before I began assembling the drawers, I had to chisel out the end of the routed grooves for the underlayment. Since the router bit is round, the grooves had a rounded corner where I started and stopped the groove. This would keep the underlayment from sliding completely into the groove, so I chiseled each end of the groove square. Here's a little before and after. That one has the rounded corner from the router blade, and this one is chiseled out, and it's nice and square all the way down. I cut 1/4-inch plywood to a dimension that will make up the bottom of the drawers. All 6 drawers are the same dimension. Well, it's been a really long process, but all the wood is cut and it is finally time to start assembling the drawers. I'm excited to get to this point, as always. Hopefully these drawers will go together nicely, and then I'll varnish everything with a clear varnish and it'll be ready for assembly. I drilled the pocket holes into the drawer ends, that way the screws would be driven into the side pieces. So whenever you pull or push the drawers, you're fighting against the fasteners instead of pulling or pushing the fasteners in and out of the wood. I used a couple scrap blocks to clamp to the workbench to help keep the drawer pieces aligned while they went together. Once I had both end pieces attached to one side, then I slid the drawer bottom into the groove before attaching the other side piece. The last piece is always fun to line up. It has to line up with the 2 sides and the drawer bottom, with glue going everywhere. One down, 5 more to go. After all the drawers were assembled, I gave them a final sanding and slightly rounded out any sharp edges. I blew off all the dust with compressed air before applying a thick coat of water-based polyurethane to the entire drawers, top, bottom, inside, and out. I think I even put 2 coats on the outside. While the poly was drying, I patched all the drywall holes from the old shelves, and here's what the mud looks like while it's drying. Then I finally painted the inside of the old pantry in preparation for the new pantry insert. The inside of the pantry dimensions are 19 by 33 inches, so it was a weird tight space to paint. So I'm very excited to be getting to this point. I feel like I've said that probably a lot during this video, but I'm excited to make progress on this pantry cabinet thing. And probably the only parts that I'm not super excited about are the painting and, of course, the sanding. But right now, this phase that I'm excited about, the assembly is pretty much done. Just going to mount the drawer slides, and I need to measure this bottom portion, which is one of the sides. Need to mark out where the drawer slides are going to go, corresponding with this side. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Get the drawer slides marked out and mounted, and then I can move this inside, screw it to the wall, and attach the drawers. I made lines where the bottom of the drawer slides need to line up. I test fit one of the drawers to ensure that they're all going to fit before attaching the remaining slides. Test fitting it to make sure the width is okay. Oh no, it's kind of tight. Praise the Lord. It actually fits. I was worried there for a second. Since the bottom of the drawer slides are rounded, I used a block to help line them up with the lines I made earlier. Whenever you have 6 or 12 of something, you end up doing the same thing over and over. Alright, what do you think? Did it fit the first time? There was an old baseboard nail keeping it from sliding in, so I had to hammer that in before sliding it in the rest of the way. I had to get creative sliding it in there. This was a tight fit. Sweet. Did I mention there are 2 parts of the drawer slides? I installed the other 12 halves of the drawer slides using some alignment blocks to save time with their mounting locations. I bought the pricier Select Pine for the door frame because it did not have any knots, and I think it's probably less likely to warp. I did have to use 1 scrap piece of primed trim for the centerpiece because the 2 8-foot pieces were only long enough for the sides and a top or bottom piece. I began routing a groove in all the pieces to hold the underlayment used for the inner panels of the door. This is the same material I used for the drawer bottoms. On the tall side pieces, I was careful not to route a groove all the way to the ends or middle. I needed to leave wood there so the pocket hole screws would have something to bite into. I drew lines where the boards will attach so I know where to stop the router. I cut the top and bottom door inserts down to size. I had to improvise using the miter saw because the piece of underlayment was too wide to run through my table saw. More pocket holes and glue were used to attach the door frame together. Clamping the 2 boards down keeps everything nice and lined up while driving the screws in. I test fit the drawer inserts before finally assembling the door together. This piece was a little hard to wrestle into place. I could have used an extra set of hands, but I eventually got it. I used my trusty cabinet door hinge jig to make quick work of the hinge holes. Then I cut down a bunch of dowels to fill the pocket holes. This was the first time I ever did this, and I had to go out and buy a pull saw, which I've been wanting for a while. It was fun to use, and after I cut down the dowels, I sanded them flat before painting the inside and outside of the door. I did 1 thick coat on the inside of the door and 2 coats on the outside. It was finally time to install the door hardware, and I went with a low profile option because of the wall and window trim that the door rests on when it's open. I hope this video gave you some ideas or motivation if you're thinking about rebuilding your own pantry. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and consider subscribing. I really appreciate your support. It helps me to continue to make more videos.